Good evening. My name is Peter CEO. I am the president of CNU North Texas, and I want to welcome you all to this event. I don't remember the name of it, I apologize. You can go and so in my notes. The future of transit in North Texas, opportunities and challenges. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to recognize and thank some folks. Our partners on this event, Data. It's been you guys are doing great work, and we really appreciate it. And thank you for showing up and showing support for this. Corey and Latasha, thank you for letting us use your space and being gracious hosts. They've been wonderful to us. They're supplying all the drinks, so let's give them a round of applause just for that. So we had hoped that Nadine Lee from Dartmouth would be able to join us, but she unexpectedly had to go down to Austin, so I know she's doing some important work that we're all supporting her for. So we hope for the best, but we do have some great panelists tonight. First, we're going to have Richard Andreski, President and CEO of Trinity Metro, and then Kay Shelton, DART's Chief of Staff. Thank you, Kay. And then we'll also have some advocates, Hexel Colorado, founder of Dallas Urbanists, member of Data, and also a member of our board. And then Connor Hulla. Am I saying that right, Connor? I apologize. I should ask you for it. No, Hulla? Thank you. My apologies. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your work with Data. And then with that, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Brandon Blanker to be moderating. He is our VP and all around good guy. Thank you.
Appreciate you all coming. Hexel and Connor, if you all want to come on up, take your seats. So I want to just sort of reiterate thanks to everyone, especially Corgan, for providing us with this room, to DART and Trinity Metro for providing some exceptional folks who are going to give us some great insight, and certainly you all. We really appreciate it. CNU is a great national organization. We are the local North Texas chapter, and we are re-energized. As a lot of organizations face some struggles over COVID and finding their way afterward, we have a newly reconstituted board. We're looking to do more events like this that are fun, engaging, educational. We would love for you all to become members, to bring us ideas. So please feel free to look online and see what's happening there. And we'll start with a show of hands. Who came here by transit or walking, not by car?
Or bike.
Or bike, yes. That's fantastic. That's a good showing. I tell people, I'm from New York originally. I've been out here about 10 years. I live in the Arts District and walk everywhere. I don't own a car right now. And I don't think people recognize the quality of walkable urban living. But we have challenges. This was a region that was not built for the feet. And we have transit advocates, which we're going to get to in a moment, and we have transit agencies that are literally fighting for our very survival, and we hope that you all will join in that fight. So, let's get started. I have here with us Connor Hulla. I didn't get that right either. Oh, there we go. With the last name Blanker, I should know better. Hexel Colorado. So Hexel found Dallas Urbanists, happens to be a fellow board member of CNU, and is involved with Data as well. And I think that's a great example of how those who believe in good urbanism need to work together. The big stuff, the small stuff, whether you live in the more suburban, drivable areas and are trying to transform them, or whether you live downtown. Connor, about 6 months ago or so, founded Data, Dallas Area Transit Alliance. And we had a really exciting day yesterday that I will let him talk about. But why don't we start with this? Connor, what was the inspiration for you to launch Data? And what has what's your vision for the organization? Where have you come in a very short period of time? And then you can close out, and I'd like to hear your thoughts also, Hexel, on a tremendous lobby day that I happened to join them that was held yesterday.
Yeah, so what happened is maybe in April or May of last year, there were articles that Dallas was considering taking away DART's money to fund their pension gap. Now, I guess they never really wanted to do that because that never went anywhere. But I wouldn't say there's this group chat we had online, and it's online Reddit community too, where these articles were circulating around, and a bunch of people just kind of decided to meet in Cole Park. Hexel was there too, and I was there, and we all saw this other organization, the student group called Comments for Better Transit, and then we basically said, hey, does that need to exist here to stop? At the time, we were worried about Dallas cutting guards funding, how things have changed. And the conclusion was yes, but then I think the ball started rolling when Plano passed their resolution. So at that time, I guess it was just a group of 20 people really that just decided to do it, who are just on these communities. I didn't really do it unilaterally. I don't even think when it started we knew who was going to run it. But yeah, no, that's how it happened, that's how it formed.
That's great. And for those in the audience who don't know, most probably are somewhat aware, there are two bills in Austin that could have some draconian effects in terms of funding cuts to the transit agency, specifically to DART, but it would affect the whole region. We'll get into more of that detail in our upcoming panel. But maybe you all can give a little bit, and Hexel, if you want to take this, and then Connor, I'd like your thoughts also. What happened yesterday? It was a pretty exciting day, so.
A lot happened yesterday. And I would say, I was pretty excited that we had the large group that we had. We had 25 of us from Data go down to Austin, and we were so organized, we were so precise. We had a schedule that we had set in advance, and I say we, like we have members of Data here, our event coordinator, Quay Lee, we have Con, our policy researcher. We have so many people in Data, 400 members on our member roll since June. And we've got people who are just on the Discord, on the chat every single day. They're so on the ball that the day that the bill was filed, they had set up alerts. Actually, even before the bill was filed, like as soon as the opening day, where they would start taking bills and start filing bills, we were paying attention to the fact that the representatives are threatening, as soon as they allow us, we're going to file a bill day one. And so on day one, Con and others were literally on the webpage hitting refresh, like, where's the DART bill, where's the DART bill, where's the DART bill? And the next day, they were actually anxious and nervous, and I don't know, man, I haven't seen the bill yet, did we miss it? Do we need to adjust our filter search? And so as soon as it went down, I think it was like Thursday night or Friday nights, and yeah, it was Friday night. We know it was Friday night because our general meeting was Saturday, and Connor and like 5 other people were up until like 3 a.m. reading the bill and putting together a PowerPoint for our general meeting the next day. And so, actually it was Sunday that we had it, and then Friday, you just killed your weekend just reading it and trying to understand it. And so by the time it went down, we got some support from Anne Drum, who's the leadership of the Citizens Climate Lobby, and she trained all of us. Connor put on the Discord, it says, I think like a week before lobby day, he said, I'm going to be available every day after 6 p.m. Message me, call me if you have any questions. And we went down there. There were 25 of us, and we were exchanging notes. We were talking to one of the organizers with Citizens Climate Lobby, and he said, so how do you guys do? Data had 25 people. We had, including drop-ins, 50 total meetings. Citizens Climate Lobby went down to Austin with 100 people. They had 50 meetings. That's how energized and excited and prepared, and we all came. I saw some people, I'm not going to call out, I know there are some people here who were posting on the Discord that they were buying a suit for the first time. Everybody was doing this for the first time. I've done this once before. But to answer your question, what happened?
Let me jump in, and then we can follow up. I have worn a suit a few times before, so I didn't have to buy a new one. And I've said this to a number of folks in this room. I've been to a lot of lobby days. I've been there in Washington, D.C., in various state capitals, a lot of them, with organizations that have been around for decades. I've never been with a group that was so organized, that was so prepared. And, you know, there's the Mike Tyson saying, you know, everyone has a plan to get punched in the face, and that's sort of part of what drop-ins are all about, and some people show up, or someone's running late, and whatever it might be. Kudos to you all for the organization of that. Connor, what did you think of yesterday? And when did you first think of putting this together, that we're going to get a group of a couple dozen people and organized you were?
Yeah, well, honestly, I mean, it kind of just worked itself out because we had set up all the logistics, we had David schedule. He's spent I don't even know how many hours scheduling meeting after meeting after meeting, and then I guess my role was I just came up with the arguments we're going to use and relay them to the whole team. So that's kind of how we did it, and I don't know if that's answering your question.
No, I think we got a good idea, like maybe a closing thought from Hexel, but before we do that, you know, Dallas is co-hosting this with us at CNU. Again, another example of how, you know, we need to reach, you know, across various aisles and roads and bicycle paths. How many in the room are members of DATA? That's fantastic. How many went yesterday to lobby day? So those hands are folks that were in Austin yesterday and some of us this morning. So these are the folks fighting for our region. So I applaud your efforts, and I plead with everyone else to support this cause in any way that you can. Hexel, you know, closing thoughts on lobby day, and then we'll get to some other topics.
Well, I'm very excited, and if we had any doubts, and there's still any doubts about whether or not we're going to win this battle, I feel more confident that we will after yesterday, because the overwhelming response that my team saw and that our team saw is we beat them to the punch. We told these representatives, especially all of the Transportation Committee representatives, about this bill before they had a chance to hear from anyone else. We were their first source of news about what this bill will do, its impact on real people, its impact on the region. One of the biggest responses, the talking points that Connor and our team put together, they really reacted to the $500 billion at stake from FIFA. And that was a very visceral thing. And so the fact that we told them first about what's at stake and what this bill does and what the numbers are, by the time this gets heard, if we win this, it'll be because we went.
That's great, and you brought up, I think, an important point. Dallas is in y'all's name, but you are absolutely a regional network and group of people. You know, we've got Richard, who's kind enough to come from Fort Worth. I know you have representatives out there. You have members throughout the Metroplex. What areas do you see represented in your group? Just so folks recognize that this is not a Dallas-centric. I mean, right now we're fighting for the dark bill, but you guys really reach all corners of this Metroplex.
Yeah, that's probably our advantage because we don't have to be tied to a particular city. So, you know, you can put something on Reddit that, hey, we need all of you to call this representative, and you're going to get 50 calls or whatever because we cross those jurisdictions. So we got, I live in Richardson. A lot of people in our group live in Richardson, Dallas, all the suburbs, some in Denton, some in Fort Worth. So yeah, we're pretty widely represented. And that's how the numbers, that's how you get so many people going down to Austin after you're supposed to Google Forms, link to register somewhere. And that's why it works.
I also want to add in terms of who the stakeholders and how this grows. We had in our group, the youngest person was an 8th grader who took a day off from school. And
He got permission. He got permission.
Yeah. And it was Sean. And not only did he take a day off from school, he lives in Frisco. And he attends all of our meetings. His parents It's, you know, there's a lot of support from his parents, but his parents will drop him off at the Parker Road station, and he'll independently ride the red line downtown and participate in our events. And so he's not the only one like that. We have people here who live in Fort Worth or live in Murphy, and they park ride to use DART. And so it was data, the existence of data itself and our most active members are a testament to it even goes beyond the Dallas area, the 13 member cities, the impact that this organization, this entity has.
Yeah, and I will close up the discussion of Lobby Day with this. You can see in the interactions, and we had friendly audiences and audiences that weren't as receptive. But even those, maybe especially those that might be on the other side of this issue, as I mentioned, I did a lot of lobby days. And I've been with environmental organizations and smart growth groups, you know, advocating for responsible development. But there's nothing like an absolute group of volunteers. And you can see that with the legislators and the representatives and the senators, that they really appreciated and understood these are people that really care about this cause. They're not being paid for it, it's not their job, it's not their world, this is their life. And you can see that passion come through. And speaking of passion, and I'll start with you, Connor, why transit? You know, why do you care? You know, why is this such a big issue for you? And then how do you, you know, become not just a transit advocate, but a user? What's your story?
So I think I started taking it to work because driving was not fun, especially in the evening. I found out I could work like near Richardson, Lake Highlands area, so that's how I got started. Fell into some YouTube rabbit holes that further persuaded me. But I think I've also just always liked politics too. And as soon as I turned my attention away to whatever's going on at the federal level and started looking more locally, it just kind of happened from there.
Cool. Hexel, how about you?
So when I first got started, I like a lot of people, I didn't really get into this with like an altruistic intent. I just wanted to save money. I went to Paris and I spent a lot of credit card. Ran out of credit card. And then when I got home from that trip, there's two sides of it. Number one, there was whiplash of like coming from a super walkable. I was looking at my watch, I was like, wow, I'm taking like 10,000 steps, 11,000 steps in a day, I feel great. And then coming at the time I was living in Grand Prairie, and my 10-year-old Prius had punctured a fuel tank, and it was like leaking oil, it was leaking fuel on the driveway every day. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. You know, the pandemic, it caused me to work from home, like a lot of people. And I was like, well, if I don't need it, then maybe I can get rid of it, have a one-year lifestyle experiment, and then my lease is coming up. Maybe I'll move somewhere that's walkable that I can survive without a car for a year. Well, that lifestyle experiment turned into a permanent thing. And it would not have been possible if there wasn't a reliable transit system. I happen to have been doing that right when they did DART Zoom in January of 2022. And I certainly benefited from that because you guys had that DART Zoom in January of 2022, I was able to make a plan about where to live and what routes gave me access to the things I wanted on a daily basis because of that route change. So it started out as just a personal thing, I wanted to save money. And then when I realized that, hey, this is actually a more affordable, healthier, more wonderful way to live, but it's not equally accessible to everyone. And there's people who don't have access to it either because the infrastructure is not there or the spending priority is not there, or because they have a bus stop in front of their house, but they're just not aware. And so realizing there was a lot to do both from the advocacy space as well as the education and public awareness, that's when it became more of a let's do something about it thing.
Yeah, you touched on something I think is very important, and I want the audience to take note. You made conscious decisions on where you're going to live, right? Lifestyle choices based upon transit and based upon your needs from that perspective of transportation. I did the same. When I moved here 10 years ago, for me, my commute was either a walk, or if it was too hot or a rainy day, I didn't jump in a car, I used the M-Line trolley, right? And I made an intentional decision, had to come from Long Island, where I've been in the field of building walkable places, but I didn't live a walkable lifestyle. And it's only when you live that you really understand, because I purposely didn't move to an apartment that was 2 blocks further away. Something I never otherwise would have considered. I mean, it was 2 blocks at the end of the day. But when it's 2 blocks every day, you start to make those decisions. And in our next panel, we'll touch upon the confluence of land use, development, and transit, because they absolutely must work hand in hand. But when we're talking about the transit side, you all know the network, dare I say better than some folks at DART, in the Trinity Metro. What are some hidden gems throughout DFW that we should know about in terms of transit?
Okay, I'm gonna let you take the first answer at this. But I will say, a lot of the hidden gems we both kind of discovered together, because early on it was not, before data, like 2 or 3 years before data, we had both kind of moved into where we were living when we went when I went car free and you moved to City Line, and we started exploring the network together. And so, anyways, I want to let you take the first one, because I can just go off on all my feelings.
I don't believe that.
I like taking Route 9 to Jefferson Boulevard. It comes every 15 minutes. It's super convenient. I think everyone pays attention to the area north of Bishop Arts. You know, you gotta go to Jefferson Boulevard. There's some good food there. And it's cool. It's well built. I think all of you would like it.
I'm going to plug one of the local businesses here. So there's West End Square right here. And I'm not going to go too deep into this. We all know that there's a reputation for West End Station. But if you're like, okay, I got to go West End, I'm making a transfer at a bus or at a train, and I've got 20, 30 minutes to kill anyways, especially if it's like after dark. Cocoa Valley Suites, open until 10 o'clock, 7 days a week, and it's right in front of this West End Square. And so if you're ever at West End, you're like, oh man, I gotta wait 20 minutes for my train or 30 minutes for my train, especially if it's dark. It's clean, they've got drinks, they've got desserts, you can hang out. And because it's just 1 block over, there isn't a whole lot of like a transient, and everyone who goes there, it's a local spot, right? And the guy's great, you'll get a nice snack. And I definitely want to plug this, they're not paying me to say this, but I do want you guys to go over there and spend some money there, because I feel like any of those little businesses near stations are providing a public service, a place that I can and other people can recommend as a safe and comfortable and relaxing place to be. That's itself transit oriented. So Cocoa Valley Suites, when you're like, okay, I'm done with the finger food over here, I want an ice cream or I want a dessert, go walk over there and patronize their business.
And I know, and we'll do this at the very end, I want each of you just to sort of let folks know where they can find you, and websites and Instagram and all of that stuff. But you have a ton of this really cool advice, whether it's practical advice of using the network or Cocoa Valley Suites and things of that. So definitely give that a check if you have a chance. So last question then, if there's a question or two from the audience for these gentlemen. You have leadership from both large transit agencies here, our 2 major cities, and be nice, but here's your opportunity. What would you like them to hear? What would maybe be your top 1 or 2 thing wish list? You've got a captive audience, so let's hear it from the rider. How can they improve the experience?
Don't reduce.
Oh.
No, is it on? Don't reduce frequency in the next budget, please. Don't, if you can. So I don't think the legislation will pass anyways. That's what I want to say.
I think you'll appreciate this first one, and I'll make 2. Number 1, 90% of transportation problems are land use issues in disguise. And so,
Say that again.
louder for people in that, right?
Yes.
90% of transportation problems are land use issues in disguise. So what does that mean? You're under attack, there's a lot of people making a lot of demands from you. The first place that you need to look is, and I realize this is not within your control, like it's not entirely within your control, the land use around your stations, the land use around your routes. Now, realizing that this is not entirely within your control. You don't control zoning, you don't control. Something that I've come to reflect on a lot in the past year is that DART is more than just a transit agency. I've come to realize perhaps a bigger role that you guys play that really determines whether you live or die is your role as not just a transit agency, but as a research agency. I'm in these CAC meetings, and whether we talk about every meeting, it's important what you guys have researched, what you guys are looking at. And you might not be changing the routes every day, but you have service planners who are looking into something. And recently, when we are in your negotiations with Plano, you tasked your staff on researching, okay, what happens to our service if we decrease it by 5%? What I encourage you guys to do is put your think tank to the task of advising the cities, if you do this very specific thing, if you do this very specific zoning on these very specific routes, our research team has shown that you will increase your property value, your sales tax revenue by X dollars. If you start providing that level of feedback and input to the individual cities and say, if you're not happy that you're not getting, you have a $100 million deficit between the service that you're getting and the service that you're paying, if you're not happy with that $100 million deficit, here are very specific things you can do to increase your value per acre, increase your property tax, sales tax revenue, increase the value that you're generating on the existing corridors. If you do this, you can close your gap.
And your second point, I want to get a question in, so I...
Oh, that was number 2. It's recognize your role as a research agency. I understand you can't fix the land use itself, but you have amazing people in your departments who can give that very precise guidance to the cities themselves.
Appreciate it. Any question or two from the audience? Yes, here, I'll come to you, sir. But I'm holding the mic. I learned that lesson the hard way.
Yes, Hexel, how would you address the issue that people not wanting their property value to go up and actually resisting that? I'm talking about especially homeowners of a certain age. And anytime you try to do anything in Dallas in terms of neighborhood preservation or improving an area, you always get this pushback.
So that's a very big question that I think Brandon will kill me if I try to answer it in full. So I'm going to answer in part, and just forgive me if I'm not answering this fully. But I'm going to focus on the element of, if you wanted a lead measure, not a lag measure, a lead measure of how useful you're making your stations. As a writer, I want to give you my permission to look at property value as a lead indicator of how useful to the riders that station that property is. And here's why. Every time you get on a train or a bus, someone is going to make money at the end of that trip. If you're going to work, that transit trip is money for you. If you're going to buy something, if you're going grocery shopping, it's money for. And so if property value is a measure of demand, and demand is an outcome of people using the transit system and going somewhere, then it's okay to look at the property value going up around your stations as an indication of, hey, if we do this, it's going to increase property value. There's a direct correlation between property value and the uses and the reasons for a transit rider to go there. And so, and the reason I say...
So we'll start with, it's not an elephant in the room. I mean, it's a stegosaurus. And I want to hear both of your perspectives because, again, while people focus because it's in the name and it's directly, attacking your funding, it absolutely could have effects, whether it's Trey and throughout the entire system in Fort Worth as well. But Kay, why don't you just give sort of the primer? For folks that don't know what's going on in Austin, the potential implications, what is happening with the member cities, what does that even mean? So, give us that sort of brief primer, and then I'd love to hear your perspective on it from across the Metroplex.
Sure, and I'm like, is a Tyrannosaurus Rex bigger than a Stegosaurus? Because I think it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I think it's bigger. So who knows about these bills? Most people in the room. Who's read it and done a PowerPoint about it? Not very many of you, but I've read it a lot as well. Both bills, the House bill and the Senate bill. And so for those of you not familiar with it, basically the premise is that it would require DART to develop an interlocal agreement with each of our 13 cities and redirect about 25% of our sales tax revenue, voter-approved sales tax revenue for transit, to go back to the cities for uses that don't necessarily need to be tied to transit. So highways and streets, drainage improvements, those types of things are listed in there. So 25% is a huge blow to our budget. We are primarily funded by sales tax revenue, so think about taking 25% out of your primary income and what that would do to you. We also allocate about 25% of our revenue to our debt service. Again, to help pay off voter-approved infrastructure improvements to build the system that we have today. So that's really the bottom line. There are several other pieces in the legislation about, requiring us to issue debt at a lower rate, which would just make it more expensive to borrow money. But I'm not going to get into those. The bottom line is really just the reallocation of dollars. And so many of you, if you've been following the DART board discussions around this, is what's the alternative to that? And it's not pretty, but we're trying to come up with a local solution to try to stop this and come up with something that is going to still be painful, but would allow us to survive and potentially have the opportunity to grow back. So this is not something that we want to do. I don't think it's anything the board wants to do, but it's something that a lot of our board members think we have to do right now to try to come up with some sort of solution to address this. And so the resolution that the DART board passed on the 25th of March, who's read that and put a PowerPoint together about that? Connor? But so what it does is it doesn't say 25% for all the cities, but it says let's set aside 5% of our sales tax for a couple of years ago when we had the last actual sales tax. It's about $42 million, which is still a big chunk out of would have to come out of our operating budget. And that would be redirected to a new line item in our budget for this general mobility program. And it would be used as an equity adjustment for some of the cities that feel like they are overpaying or over-contributing based on their sales tax collections in their cities to what they're getting, which is based on a study done by Ernst & Young. There's a whole background on this about why they're doing it. So the cities need money. We're one of the sources that they can come to for it. And now they have this report that says, we're overpaying for what we're getting, and so they're using that really as their fuel to try to justify this ask. So if you haven't listened to the last couple board meetings, I would encourage you to listen to it and hear what some of the potential reductions would be. But that's where we're at right now, and I don't, it's a resolution by the DART board. It's binding as the resolution gets, but I don't see how we can get around it, except the energy probably needs to be focused now on finding revenue replacements. And that's, I think, where data can help in the future from a regional perspective and from a new funding perspective.
Great, and I really want to hear your perspective, Rich, on how this really is a regional issue, how it could directly affect your operations. But I want to touch on something that you said real quick. At CNU, we're believers in creating walkable, sustainable neighborhoods in fiscal responsibility. And what we're seeing here for those strong towns fans out there, we see the results of when you build for the automobile. It works real well for the first 20 years. Well, then you get congestion, and then it becomes 30 years, and then 40 years you have to start to rebuild your roads and your infrastructure, but you're talking about background growth because you've already built out the entire environment. And at that point, you only have one choice, and that's taxes go up. And I'll just say this, it's not fair if I've been irresponsible fiscally and looked to raise your taxes because I've done so. I'll just say that much. But Richard, again, what's going on in Austin has implications throughout the entire Metroplex, certainly to your operations at Fort Worth. Maybe you can share a little bit, from your perspective.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you for including me. I want to start with a word of thanks. I'm coming here tonight. I am more optimistic than I was earlier today. Just hearing from Hexel and Connor and all of you in the room about what you're doing to advocate not only for DART, but for responsible public investment in our transit system. I can't tell you what a difference that makes. I started out as an advocate myself, a while ago. But yes, I did. I had a binder. The advocacy role is so important. You have such an outsized impact, and you know this, Hanzada. The advocacy role is so critical because they expect Kay and I to say the things that we're going to say up here. When you go and speak as a resident, as a user of the system, I'm telling you, it matters. It matters significantly. And so the fact that you're doing this and taking time out of your day and you're busy and you have other commitments, keep doing what you're doing and never give up. And even though I believe we'll be successful here collectively, this conversation is not going away, right? So we've got to be vigilant in terms of what it means in the region. Look, the region used to be distinct cities. Dallas and Fort Worth were very distinct, separate metros at one point. Not that long ago, I had lunch with Mayor Kenneth Barr yesterday. He served in the 1990s. In Fort Worth, he told me at the time, was 450,000 residents. And a lot of the land between these two cities was undeveloped. And what we've seen over the last 30 or 40 years is a merging of the metro area into what we call the metroplex. And we can't get away from that. We can't, it's a fact that we function as one economy, one region, one transportation system. And what happens in Dallas affects Fort Worth and vice versa. So even if you as a user don't travel between those cities, the economies of those two cities are very much interconnected. So what does it mean? It means a few immediate things. The Trinity Railway Express is at risk. Say it bluntly, we in Fort Worth cannot operate, support TRE by ourselves. Do you all know that TRE is a joint service?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's a 50-50 partnership, and so without our partner, that service will be severely impacted, if not suspended. So we're doing our best to avoid that. And then I would say, we should be actually going the other direction, doing more to knit together this regional system. So the fact that we're having a conversation about survival is stunning. We should be talking about how does the city of Arlington get knitted into the transit system in a way that goes beyond their rideshare service.
I appreciate that. That leads us in, because it's not all doom and gloom, right? I mean, we've got this really pressing issue that is critical. But there's a lot of good stuff going on. And, you mentioned just the growth we've seen. The growth is still coming. We're soon to pass the Metroplex, DFW. We're soon to surpass Chicago as the third largest metro in the country. One of the best ways to manage that growth is transit-oriented development. Going to what Hexel said in terms of, this is a land use question and a land use issue. So some of you in the room were there, and I know you were there last week and appreciate it. With the Urban Land Institute partnered with DART. DART reached across the aisle and said, private sector, developers, investors, we need to work together. And it was a really good event. And there was a lot of energy in the room. What can you speak? We'll start with you, Richard, then we'd love to hear your thoughts, Kay. In terms of the development that is currently planned and what could be, so that we can better utilize the spaces around and adjacent to our rail stops.
Brandon, I think you did a show of hands in that room. How many were transit insiders, and then how many were in the development committee? What would you say?
It was pretty split. One of the best feedbacks that I got was from the folks on the transit side saying, I haven't been in a room that had so many developers, and likewise developers, and folks in the land use arena saying, I've never seen such access to willing participants on the municipal side. So kudos to everyone for that. And this is an extension of that with a whole other audience, and it's like that Venn diagram, but our needs are all, the community is in the middle. So give us some insight on what we can expect on the Fort Worth side with TOTs.
Yeah, it was a full room. we were very bullish on the future of TUD in Fort Worth. We have city council, Mayor Manny Parker, who actually really believe in what we're doing around transit. So you may have heard about our urban rail, not our, it was the mayor's urban rail committee. Ann Zeta participated in that. Really exciting. What that is Fort Worth is densified. We're seeing more infill, more interest in our central city. How do we connect our entertainment districts better? The museum and entertainment district on West 7th, our historic north side, our stockyards, our booming here south side, Magnolia area. And we think we can do that with a streetcar program. Fort Worth has some catching up to do. I mentioned 450,000 people in the 1990s. We're now crossing the 1 million mark. Dallas had an entire network built out by the time they crossed 1 million. So we are way behind in terms of building the transit infrastructure. What I will say is there's $1 billion right now, shovels in the ground downtown. Texas A&M, Innovation District happening near our central station, new hotels, there's an expansion of our convention center. There's a new 25-story residential tower that's gone up and just opened last year. So there's interest, and I think what you're going to see is an acceleration of that interest in the near future. I think Fort Worth is finding its moment.
Yeah, and we thank you for coming to this side of the Metroplex. For those of you who don't get to Fort Worth often enough, do it. It's just so cool. And one of the things I love about the Metroplex in general is, right, there's this sort of co-opetition between and among the various cities, the two larger ones and then the others, but it also gives you a lot of choice, right? And every place is a little bit distinct. And within those places, it kind of reminds me of the Power of 10 for Project for Public Spaces, for those who know that, where you have a place or a district, and in there you want 10 things to do, and you want to see that activity. There are those different neighborhoods in Fort Worth, there are those different neighborhoods here, and we're really seeing that stitched together. I know there's a lot on the boards for transit-oriented development on this side of the Metroplex. Share that with us, because there's some really cool stuff that's happening, that's about to happen, and that folks might not even know about, but you might be able to tell us.
Yeah, and I'll start with, I want to reiterate too what you said earlier, just about thank you to Data and everyone that went to Austin. I mean, it's really inspiring, like Connor, my hero, and so is Hexel. I love it. So I want to start first with our strategic plan. We have a Point B strategic plan, and who's looked at that? Can you raise your hands if you've looked at our strategic plan? So not that many. I would encourage you to go to our website and take a look at it. We have 6 strategic goals in there, and one of them is called Fantastic Spaces. And we have another one called Strategic Relationships. And those are the 2 goals that are really focused on like community building and relationship building. And so there's lots of initiatives in the Fantastic Spaces one about how we want to start to work with our cities more, right, and unlock the potential that we have 65 light rail stations. That's a lot. Dallas has, I think, 45 of them. It's a lot easier for one of our cities that might have 1 station to focus on that and get something done. But we have great examples. Walking Route Station is taking a while, but we have plans to redevelop the parking lots there. That's going to be exciting, and that's starting to move forward. Trinity Mills in Carrollton is an amazing example of what's actually coming out of the ground. Has anyone been up there to visit and see it? If you haven't yet, that's a great field trip to just take people and see. They did a very thoughtful, job of just the design and connecting it to the station. And so I think it's a really wonderful example. Richardson has been doing amazing things, and it's kind of grown a little bit more organically, but they were very strategic about where they were putting their stations and the development around them. And then, Dallas, we have a memorandum of understanding with Dallas for 5 sites. Buckner Station is one that's coming up pretty soon, and if you were at the TUD Summit, you heard Palladium talk about that multi-family development on a large chunk of our parking lot there. So we're trying to figure out how to utilize the underutilized parking better and create these fantastic spaces, build the ridership, build the tax revenue, so it's a win-win for everyone. I think what's important is what I don't think a lot of our cities, especially Dallas, hasn't necessarily done yet, but there's so much potential there, is really establish a vision around the stations, because I think that kind of sets the tone for what you want that area to be, and what you want that space to be. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I know Hexel, you said we should be a research organization, and that's wonderful. I also think there's a big role for the Council of Governments there. They do a lot of work too, and I think there's an opportunity for them to do more scenario planning, right, and do some of that modeling. We're doing some of that as part of our area plan process with each of our cities. So actually developing the visuals, like if you change your zoning and do these things, you'll start to see, right, visually where the density and the property values and the tax revenue is starting to go up. So we're starting to use more visuals to demonstrate that and show people if you do certain things, this can happen. And it benefits everybody. But there are challenges with neighborhoods and all of that still. But, so there's a lot going on. That's just a little list. I do want to point out Garland too. It's not just rail stations. Garland has transit centers, just bus transit centers, and they are really working with us to leverage and build TOD around bus transit centers too. And then, bus corridors, let's get density along the bus corridors too, right? So people like Hexel and everyone else that wants to live a car-free lifestyle can have a place to live along a strong, high-capacity transit corridor.
So you brought up a great point there, right? Not all transit is trains, right? That's what everyone geeks out on, and they grow up with the train ride and all of that, but it's one of the cogs, right, in the machine. I know that when Nadine first came in, one of the first efforts, was to relook at the bus system. Maybe you can explain some of those changes in the rationale, and then Rich, you guys, I was fortunate enough wearing that ULI cap to take a tour, and we should do this also at CNU and data of your new orange line, right? So here are things with rubber wheels that are doing great things. So tell us about the big changes we saw a few years ago and how that's coming and what might come next in terms of the rubber wheels over here. And then let's talk orange line and some of those, efforts you're doing on the other side.
So DART Zoom was referenced earlier, and that was our major bus network redesign. So if you think about how DART's bus system grew over time, it was really a feeder network to the rail as it kept expanding. The express buses would go away when a new line opened if it was parallel to it, and then we'd just feed routes into rail. So there had never been a redesign of how can we make our buses function more independently too, still feed the rail, but really be useful routes by themselves. So DART Zoom was intended to really focus on the high ridership routes. We went from 7 frequent routes to 22 frequent routes as part of that effort. And really focused mostly in Dallas on a lot of those routes. A few of them go outside of the city of Dallas into places like Richardson and Addison and Irving, but most of them are in Dallas. And then we have some more frequent coverage routes in some of the other cities. But microtransit, the on-demand service doubled from, I think we had 15 or 16 zones before, went to 31 zones. And it covers, about half of our service area right now. So we have this mix of services that are really kind of balancing out the ridership focus and the coverage focus that's working pretty well. The legislation, unfortunately, might undo some of that, hopefully temporarily, but we think we've got a really strong network right now, and we've trimmed a lot of the fat out of it. So if you think about having to make reductions to that now, there's really, the only place to go really is to look at the low performers and try to affect frequencies on some of the routes. But what's next after that, we have lots of plans. But whether we can get them done, I think it is going to depend on if we can find additional funding. I just think the current atmosphere is going to constrain us unless we find more funds. Sorry to be a downer, but.
We'll talk about how we might be able to generate some of that development in a moment.
Okay.
Rich, orange line?
Have you all heard about our color-coded or metro routes? We're building a network. Yeah, of course, Ann and Daniel. Connor, you heard about it? Yeah. It was good to know now that when I'm lurking in the Reddit, that I know who else is posting, because I'm reading these posts, I'm like, and they know a lot about this.
I know that's true. I look at Reddit all the time. I'm like, who is this? Who's this user?
Yeah, so I'm in the Reddit, the various parts of Reddit, but it's funny to read the posts about transit. Usually you're spot on. The Metro system is about making our transit network more user-friendly. And It'll be a number of years before we have a streetcar system, so what we're doing is really creating a streetcar system with buses. And so our first route is the orange line that runs between downtown and the stockyards. It's somewhere between a streetcar and BRT. We run on 15-minute headways 7 days a week, no variation in schedule, 20 hours a day. The stops are more spaced out. We have artwork at the stops. If you have, show of hands who's been on the bus? Okay.
Did you say 20 hours a day?
20 hours a day. We run from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. Yeah. But for a little old Fort Worth, it's a big step forward for us. And then, so we have cowhide patterned seats. There's entertainment. The mayor comes on and welcomes people on the audio system. It's experiential. It's what you would think if you go to an amusement park and there's, the transportation's part of the experience. So you're first to hear it in early June. We're going to launch Blue Line, and Blue Line is going to be pushing for every 5 minutes. We'll see if we get there. It'll be at minimum every 7 minutes. We're going to try to get to every 5 minutes. And that'll be the downtown circulator. And then beyond that, we have a red and a green line coming, hopefully next year. And these routes are really going to connect all the destinations, just like Orange Line. And let me say one thing, the results speak for themselves. So we had, there was an existing fixed route service. It was just plain vanilla. We redid it with the new service, and now we're seeing an uptick of 45 to 50% gain in ridership. And that's right, that's just, it's still a bus, but it's just a different experience, and people talk about it. So we're excited about that program. I think for the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to see more innovation from us on our bus system.
Can I add a couple things? I didn't mention too, we invested a lot on midday and weekend service, and extending hours of service, and it's paid off. I mean, that's where our ridership growth has been. And we've been seeing 12 to 15% growth year over year in our service, which is strong. It's just the commuter services really that are slow to return, but I'll tell you what, people are coming back to work. I think a lot of it's, it might start turning.
They might be kicking and screaming, but hopefully they get on transit, right? So, I think, it's the same, right, build it and they will come. That's never true. But if you build it right, and for those who have not, the Orange Line is an exceptional experience. I mean, it's, so often we fall into this trap that, bus service is a transit mode of necessity because you don't have a choice. You're not able to afford a car or use a train, or you don't have access to that. And that gets into greater issues of equity and land use and things of that sort. But the fact is, there are ways to improve the experience. When you improve the experience, you get better results. If you get better results with transit, you have investors who then want to build by transit, right? And it goes around. But let's focus on the rider experience. And there are challenges, whether, safety and security. A lot of it's overblown. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but there are a lot of misconceptions. There are concerns, whether it's homeless and certainly cleanliness. Perhaps we'll start with you, Rich. What are some of the misconceptions about transit that's out there? Because there are a lot of us that use it often, and it's a great experience. And nothing works perfect all the time. And what are you looking to do to improve that experience, where you see those opportunities? And then I'd love to hear that from the Dart side.
Yeah, so I would start with the data. We did an in-depth polling and focus groups across Tarrant County about a year ago. And the results, I think, surprised me. First of all, I was surprised by this blew my mind. How many unique users, unique residents use Trinity Metro at least once per year? I thought maybe we'd get to 10%. Turns out 1 in 3 people, not households, 1 in 3 individuals uses our service at least once a year. So in a county of 2.2 million people, that means there's over 700,000 unique residents that touch our system. So I do think the perception surprised me. I thought, no way, no how, aren't part of the region. And so that was number one. Number two is we probed and asked, what's your perception of Trinity Metro? And do you believe we should be investing more? And overwhelmingly, 78% said absolutely more. And it wasn't private investment. We worded the question very intentionally. We said, do you feel we should make more public investment in public transportation. And further, it was not like Fort Worth was leading that. We polled in very conservative corners of town.
And you're working off of a half cent, right? I'm not sure everyone realizes that.
So half penny, and it's not half of the revenue, right? Because we don't have 13 members, we have one. It's a city of Fort Worth. Now we have other partner cities like North Richland Hills and Grapevine that do contribute, but we only have a one half penny member. And we've done a lot with that half penny. And I'll leave you with this thought on this idea. We were set up as a bus company in 1983, and that's all we were. And so the half penny was really sized to support the bus company. We're now providing bus service, train service, on-demand service, bike share, van pool. I'm missing our transit, and so that half penny is doing way more than anyone ever anticipated. So it's time to talk about new revenues.
I think it is, and we've got folks here that will fight for that cause, certainly. Kay?
Yeah, so I'll start a little bit from the past and then what we're doing right now relative to rider experience or customer experience. So we did a value of transit study back in 2022, I think, and got a lot of feedback. We did some surveys and talked about what the value was of transit to people in different categories. And that gave us a lot of insight as to what the issues were at the time, which a lot of it was coming out of the pandemic, right? A lot of issues with people sheltering on the system, trash, on the system. And so that was kind of what was happening in that time frame. Our customer satisfaction surveys that we do every year, we do those annually, that kind of had its low point at that same time as well. So that gave us targeted feedback on where we needed to start focusing. We actually had some funds available. The DART board approved $110 million to go towards cleanliness, reliability, and security improvements back in October of 22. We call that our ridership improvement program. So a lot of projects have been completed. It funded some programs, like we added 100 more security officers to the system. It's hard to hire police officers. Recruiting continues to be a challenge. So we are contracting their armed officers. They're on the rail system, supplementing our fare enforcement officers. We changed out the seats on the buses and trains to vinyl. We had elevator attendants at our elevator stations because people were camping out sometimes in the elevators. More cleaning at end of the line. So we did a lot to try to enhance the customer experience and address the basics. And that's been working because our customer satisfaction has been trending up. It rose 10% just in the last year. Based on that survey, our Net Promoter score is the highest it's been since 2016, and that's kind of a customer loyalty measure. And then right now what we're doing is we are doing a organizational assessment around customer experience. So we have been interviewing people across DART, frontline people, employees, leadership, trying to understand from their perspective, where are the pain points? Are we remedying them the right way? Do we actually account for the customer in the right way in our policies and procedures and kind of how we approach problem solving at the agency? So that is intended to kind of put a roadmap together of what we want to do in the next 3 to 5 years to help make that customer experience better. And one of the questions we ask, well, what's customer mean? So for everybody at DART, it's a little bit different. It might be employees. So we're kind of incorporating employee experience into that as well. Our stakeholder experience, right, for developers or people that are trying.
It's been a north-south system where Addison Circle has been the best TOD without transit for 30 years, something that we call a transit ready, which is the way to build communities, because to build a walkable community by a train station or not, very, very much the same principles. Tell us about the Silver Line. Is it going to happen this year? And when I say happen, I mean open. And what does that mean? And what can you talk about the development around it?
Don't tell anybody. I'm not going to give you an exact date. And I will say, Addison has been rail ready for a while, but they've had a lot of transit for a long time. And it is a bus transit center, right? And they are a hub, one of the busiest in our system with, I don't know how many routes, you probably know, 13, 15 routes certain. So this is going to be a real big value add for them and really going to support, I think, the rest of their development. Think about the special events that they have up there. the Silver Line serving that city is going to be amazing. So who knows about the Silver Line? I'm not going to go into a lot of details. Everyone knows about the Silver Line. 26 miles, 10 stations, connecting Plano to DFW Airport. 5 of our cities are served, and then it goes through Grapevine and Coppell on the way to the airport. It's going to use diesel multiple unit vehicles similar to what TexRail uses on the Fort Worth side, a Stadler vehicle, so works well in freight corridors because there's still some freight in several sections of the corridor. But what's awesome about this line is that I think when you think about fantastic spaces and our goal there, I think every single station, maybe Shiloh is going to be the end of the line, and it's a more industrial area, but every single station along that corridor, there's a plan or there's something underway, or there's something already there. So it's only going to get better, I think, once the line starts operating, and I'm not going to give you an exact date, but it should be by the end of the year. I'm not going to give you a firm date, but if you've watched any of our board presentations, we're trying to figure out how to get it going next fiscal year, which is after October 1. So that is moving along. It's been in the works, since the late 1990s. Phyllis knows. I worked with her on that planning, the old days and the early planning, so it's been around for a while. Yes, Cottonbelt, North Crosstown Corridor, I had to change the name. It's been around, but UTV's doing amazing things with their north side development. Addison, downtown Carrollton has updated their downtown master plan right now, trying to figure out how to integrate our parking lot. Cypress Waters in Dallas. So every single station is leveraging that as an asset.
That's really exciting, and you said you weren't going to give us a firm date, but end of the year has a firm date in my mind. December 31st is a firm date. All right, one more question I'll pose to both of you, and Rich, we're really going to get your take on this. Let's take out the crystal ball and look 5, 10, 20 years into the future, and just sort of what are your thoughts, and in what direction are we going? What might be some surprises? And you and I had this really cool conversation about a week ago in terms of automated vehicles, which have been coming for so long that, 15 years ago they were coming tomorrow, but it's been 15 years of tomorrow. Is tomorrow today? How does that play into the mobility and transportation field? And like I said, I just love each of your thoughts on what's out there in the futurist world for transit and mobility.
Is this a safe space?
What are you going to say?
We do have a camera.
Well, let me start by saying the future of transit is very bright. I do think what transit looks like is going to change radically in the next 10 to 20 years. I think transit will continue to excel in high-density, high-frequency corridors, traditional transit, whether it be streetcar, bus, BRT, rail. Our rail lines continue to play an absolutely essential role. But if we look at our performance by route in the Trinity Metro system at least, 80% of the ridership is on a quarter of the routes. So we have these largely inefficient networks by necessity. The old model, the current model of transit is you buy one-size-fits-all vehicles, you provide a minimum level policy headway of 30 or 60 minutes, and sort of is what it is. Automation is happening, and it's happening this year. And I'll tell you, I've been following this for 20 years. And I will tell you, we are at a readiness now where it's going to scale. It's going to scale quickly. The Waymo services are popping up now in 6 cities. They are now open to the general public. They are now without safety drivers. They are making increasingly greater numbers of trips. I will also say, and it's tough to talk about Tesla in an apolitical sense these days, but I've been following Tesla. I've owned a Tesla for 8 years. And I've had the full self-driving package in my car, and I now almost go to sleep, and it's nuts. It's absolutely. I went from Fort Worth to San Antonio, and I promise you, my hand never touched the wheel. 283 miles. It got off at Buc-ee's. It knew it needed to be charged. It went in search of, went down the stalls. It found an empty stall. It puts it in reverse. It backs in by itself. I mean, I'm telling you, 283 miles without, I mean, this is not sort of in the public consciousness right now, because if you don't have one and don't drive one, and you've heard the rhetoric and you've seen the nasty incidents nationally, I'm telling you, they solved it. Now, what does that mean for transit? I think it means a better transit network. Transit's not going away. Connecting our urban centers, our mixed-use communities, walkable, that's not, that model doesn't shift. What happens is, we finally can serve the entire city. There are parts of Fort Worth that cannot be served with fixed route transit. It's not realistic. I mean, Alliance, if you've been to Alliance, it's auto-centric. So why am I excited about automation? I'm excited because I think finally we can have a system that truly serves everyone. And I think the hot markets with fixed route, high frequency service is going to continue to be hot, and we're going to continue to make those investments. But I also think we can't be afraid of this radical change coming.
That's
And remember, one final thought.
Please.
The economics win, always win. People say one thing, but they do what is best for their wallet. Remember that. And so we're all gonna, right, a lot of people will say, I believe in X, Y, Z, but when it comes to, I can take a trip for $1.50, right? They're gonna go with the least cost, best option.
Yeah, that's great, and I'll say this, nothing wrong with Buc-ee's, everyone loves Buc-ee's. But I will give a shout out to the Czech Stop, which was my breakfast this morning, and they opened at 5, which was good, so I needed to get here before the traffic. So, some closing thoughts from you, Kay, in terms of that crystal ball and what you see?
Well, I agree, the future's bright. I think there's going to be bumps along the way, and that's where groups like this are going to help us, right? And help us continue to advocate for the solutions that can help everybody. I'm not going to hold my breath on automated vehicles. Okay, yeah, and I'm sure it's there for the single occupant vehicle. I still think there's going to be some more time needed. You know, there is an opportunity someday, I think, for driverless shuttles, right? I still want transit to be high capacity, because I do kind of think about sometimes about having all of these driverless vehicles running around, you know, delivering food, right? Delivering packages, carrying people or no people. It's still going to be a lot of cars, and when you think about everyone coming here, there still is going to be a capacity problem, so high capacity transit still has to play a really important role. I think there's a lot of opportunity from a safety perspective, vehicle communications, talking to traffic signals, right, the traffic management system, so you can kind of enhance the throughput of high capacity transit. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and that's where we might need to focus in the near term. But I don't have a Tesla. I don't know if I want one anymore, to be honest. But yeah, so, but you know, I think it really is just dependent on advocate groups, right, helping us get to the future that we want. Right? And in our strategic plan, we had a lot of words in there at the beginning about creating this 10 by 10 network, 10-minute walk to 10-minute transit. Like that's what Nadine's vision was for the agency. I think it still is her vision, but there was even a little bit of uncertainty about that. And you don't see much of that in the plan anymore, because there was just a little bit of trepidation from some of the board members about, wow, that means a lot more investment, you know, and I think it scared them off in terms of how much money. But, you know, that's the issue, it's money. So we gotta get our heads together and figure out a way to get more.
That's great. I'll get a couple questions from the audience. I've always been a firm believer that automated vehicles are actually going to be a huge boon and a boost for transit in 2 ways. This is my futurist hat, so we're getting over our skis a little, but why not, right? Number one is that old last mile, or maybe it's the last 3 miles, you know, and I can see that an automated vehicle goes and picks up, you know, 6 people or something, right? And very easily and efficiently gets them to now a high capacity route. And maybe this, we're all doing a little heresy here. Maybe at one point you don't need the physical rails. What you need is the high capacity right of way, where without the need for rails, nothing can compete with having train car after train car after train car and hundreds and thousands of people being able to utilize that same pathway, and maybe automated vehicles get people there quicker and then allow for different technologies to take over from that perspective. So any questions from the audience? Your hand was up first, so we'll start there.
Transit 2.0.
And again, I'm holding the mic, so no battles.
Have you heard about Transit 2.0 from NC Talk?
The question was about a Transit 2.0 plan from the COG. If you could give a little bit of insight on that.
I'll try. Yeah, I want to chime in too. So, I want to be honest about it, but I don't want to poo-poo it too much. I mean, I think it's a great effort. I don't know if Transit 2.0 is answering the right question of what needs to be covered in Transit 2.0 for this region. I think there's a lot of focus on figuring out how to solve DART's problems, but that's not the problem. There's a bigger problem in the region about how do the rest of the cities participate in this, what's the funding and governance structure for that, how do we take the load off of the service areas that exist today that, you know, even some of our board members say are carrying the region in terms of some of the air quality benefits, and, you know, we're paying for it. And so I agree with them to some extent that there's got to be some solution that's very forward-looking, and it's going to take years to get there, but some sort of new structure that would take a little bit of the load off, like the idea of a regional rail authority that might take over TRE potentially, or, you know, I don't know if we want to give up our other lines or not, but if that can be taken off our books and it becomes a state or some regional type of funding structure, we can free that up, right, to put into service investments in the areas that need it the most. So Transit 2.0 is looking at a lot of different things. I think it's a lot of what we're doing already, maybe looking at it a little bit differently, but still not answering the big question of what does this region want to be and how do we get there. So I think data can help advocate at the regional level as well in terms of promoting that vision beyond just the 3 transit authorities that exist today.
Any brief thoughts or?
Kay did a great job.
Excellent. More questions we might be able to get to, but we'll do our best. We'll get you next because she was here before all of you. So she wins.
I have a question of Richard, an operational question. You mentioned about the blue line coming up to the downtown area. How does that compare and contrast to Molly to Trolley?
Yeah, Molly's going to be retired. I know. Molly's a fantastic idea. We're hoping to amplify what Molly was intended to do, which one thing, if you don't know about Molly circulates around our downtown. Molly runs every 15 minutes. It's just not enough. Our downtown, you can walk one corner of downtown to the other in under 15. So for our new network to work and function as a new network, we're really leaning into high frequency, color coded, experiential. So yes, Molly, I don't know what we're doing with the Molly buses yet. So if you have any ideas.
I would like to know, speaking of color coded, that great tie and socks today. So
Brand.
very, very well done.
The growth in weekend ridership, when are we going to see Sunday service or increased Saturday service on the TRE?
Don't jump right in.
Yes, it needs to happen.
Yeah.
To the point, and you've got the folks here who will advocate for it. So
We will take that, yeah.
So we'll take 2 more.
So we can
Hold on.
we're doing well, right?
You'll learn why you'll be at a meeting and someone will hand over the mic, and about 10 minutes later you'll realize why.
Makes sense. Noted, first of all. But first of all, thank you all for presenting the presentation. I feel like everyone has obviously a lot of knowledge. But my question was, I want to refer back to the where we were focused on finding revenue for placements, and you're saying that like data and all people can help with this. I want to know the specifics as well, because I think it's possible that like everyone could also help with the TOD, with ridership, and with expansion and regional mobility. I mean, choosing what cities to be. So I want to dive deeper on that.
Yeah, so about creating new sources of revenue to sustain the network. Yeah, I mean, I think Grapevine is a great case study. I mean, who's been to Grapevine? You've seen Grapevine. Grapevine had strong vision, consistent leadership, and there were strong partners that understood that new revenue and new service could mean economic growth, and it's produced results. We don't have time around. out of time here, but I'll just say that there's hard data that shows the growth in sales tax, business activity, and property value related to that investment, and compare and contrast that to other parts of the city. So I think we need to take this on the road as a campaign, and I do think in the long run we're going to be successful. But we have to do, at least I'm speaking only for Trinity Metro, we need to do a better job of telling the story, the return on investment, the impact we're having. I don't know that that's widely understood yet. So in terms of how you can help, I mean, I think it's doing a lot of the things you're doing today.
Yeah, I was going to mention too, I don't know who was around when the Transportation Local Option Tax Act was trying to get pushed through the council governments. That was like in 2009. Y'all are very young, so probably not. But they looked at a lot of different revenue options back then too, right? Including raising the cap of the sales tax. Because right now you're limited to what you can do. And a lot of cities have that dedicated to either transit by the voters, or they're using it for 4A, 4B economic development. So they don't have any more capacity to do that. So Transit 2.0 did talk about, raising that by a ½ cent, but I think a lot of people were like, no, that's new tax, right? We don't want that. But even back then, I think, I'm from California originally. It costs a lot more to register your car in California than it does in Texas. Let's start thinking about just creative ways. There's 2 million cars registered in Dallas County. So why can't we tack on something? It probably would take a state legislature to do something. But, we just need to get creative and see what's been tested before, and maybe there's more appetite for some of the things, but it has to be sustainable and it has to grow, because you need that in order to continue operations and to continue to invest.
Did you want to limit it, or I want to get to 2 more, and they're going to have to be brief.
Just one idea.
Yes.
Find allies.
Yeah.
We need allies outside of our echo chambers. Okay, so I don't know who that is in your community. It might be a business leader, a nonprofit leader. Find unconventional partners to advocate.
Great. Quick, please, because we want to get one more after you. I appreciate it.
Could you talk about the relationship and how they correlate and support economically the Trans-State? It is one of the vendors of DART, and also the high speeds coming through for Dallas and Houston. How that will affect what your plans are?
So there was there a question about Transdev in there? Transdev, our vendor for our microtransit and paratransit?
It is about $600 million contract?
Yes, yes.
How economically you balance the budget? You talk about the revenue coming to you.
Yeah.
So if we could address that briefly, we'll get one more in.
So Transdev is a multi-year contract, right? They provide the dedicated vehicles for our microtransit, which is supplemented by Uber. We have a separate contract with Uber right now. We're getting ready to issue a new contract later this month for a new TNC contract to help with that. But that's a necessary, it handles paratransit as well. So it's a necessary multi-year contract, and it's very much more economical to contract that out than to do it in-house. And then high-speed rail, it ends at just south of the convention center. So if it happens, again, I hope it happens someday. I think it'd be great. But there will be pedestrian connections. Our Cedar Station and Convention Center Station are right there. So there will be connectivity. And I don't want to talk about the one between.
We'll have another forum on that. Last question is we're going to get the hook. Corrigan has been great to us, but we do want to give them their room back. So here, our final question.
Does Trinity Metro plan on expanding to the western side of Fort Worth?
That's a great question. That's where the growth is happening, right? So, yeah, Walsh Ranch, with UTA, or I-20, I-30 come together. We are in the, it's just not even a pencil sketch at this point. But yes, we are aware of the growth. We are having very early conversations with UTA and the developers. We think maybe Thierry extends beyond downtown. Maybe if we can figure out a way to get Thierry out there, wouldn't that be cool if you could go from, go all the way out to Weatherford, heck, and come in,
So
right?
let's close on that. That's a great thing to think about.
Yeah, I just want to express thank you to our panelists from on behalf of CNU North Texas. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you to Hexel and Connor for joining us, and all of that for your advocacy, and those who went down to Austin. Thank you. You guys are doing good work. We appreciate it. Thanks again to Corrigan and Latasha for all their hospitality. And I have to give a shout out to our fellow board members. They did an amazing job.
You always raise your hand.
Yeah, they worked really hard to get this all together, to get the food, all the details, and all the work involved in making this. And thank you, Brandon, for moderating and being the catalyst to get us to do this event. You did a great job, everyone. And all of you for attending. Thank you. Thank you. So real quick, I introduced myself earlier. I just want to give you a quick spiel. My day job is I'm a neighborhood scale developer. I got into it because I love places and I'm trying to make them better. And transit is a huge part of it, not just public transit, but all modes of transit that are alternative to cars. Even though I'm forced to drive every day as a general contractor running all my projects. So I'm jealous for those of you who don't have to, because I had to drive to Plano today. Anyway, I'm going to make this brief. I won't go off on a tangent. But part of what's got me involved in CNU is that I'm passionate about their mission and what their charter says. So I have to give the plug. Please check us out, become a member if you can. Check out data, become a member, support data, and all they do. I think, follow us, check us out. We have some other events coming up. We're going to do a happy hour either end of May or the beginning of June in Fort Worth, and we're probably going to try to plan a group ride on TRE out there. So look forward to that. We're going to do some more other tours, like we just did one last week. Kia Health Plan. We did a hard hat tour of the Southern Gateway. So look for more stuff like that. We're partnering with CNU Latino and APA Texas to do some more webinar sessions on what's going on with the Texas legislators. So look forward to that stuff. And thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.